less store, more ball, fewer infractions. This begins in 2020. The future is near. More access, more everyone, more everything.
February
This is
27,
our moment, our story to tell.
show number
Begun.
4.
This is the XFL.
What is up, my friends? Welcome to another edition of the XFL Week in Review. I am your host, The Mark, and on this week's show, we got some news about the XFL draft date. Vince wanted to sell the XFL, or didn't sell. We'll get into that. Pep Hamilton and Jim Zorn press conference recap, and so much more. Thanks for tuning in to this week's show. So how do you get in touch with the show? You email podcast@xflnewshub.com with your MP3 or thoughts, or you can just use on the Twitters, hashtag XFLWIR, XFL Week in Review. Cutoff time is 5 p.m. Eastern on Tuesdays. Remember to leave us a review on iTunes and we'll read it on the next show. We have a lot to get into this week, plus your question of the week. Name one big name player that could be in the XFL. This person would need to generate a ton of interest in the league. We got some examples we put out there. We got your reaction and so much more. So without further ado, let's just get into the week that was the XFL.
I would like to start by acknowledging my wife and kids. They're back in Michigan, as you can imagine. We got a lot going on in our household. We got 3 school-age kids. She's probably preparing to load up the van and go pick them up from school. So I'd like to thank my wife and say thanks for your support. I would also like to thank my friends and family from Howard University that came out to support me on my latest endeavor. You know, I think it's important for me and my family as we transition back to this community that we love so dearly, that we have the support and the guidance and leadership that I've always had from my friends and my family. When I first heard about Oliver's appointment as the CEO and commissioner of the XFL, I was immediately intrigued. I've been fortunate, I've been lucky to have had a long-standing relationship with the Luck family. And Oliver has the Midas touch, you know. I think when you talk about a father, you know, who's had all 4 of his kids graduate from the likes of Stanford, and his youngest son is now at Yale, I mean, he's a man of conviction. He's a man that provides great mentorship and leadership, and he's somebody that I consider to be a role model. He made my decision to join the XFL. He made it easy because of the credibility that he has in our profession. I share the vision of Vince McMahon and Oliver in reimagining football, and there is no doubt that their leadership will allow the XFL to have sustained success. It's exciting to have an opportunity to come back to the DMV and be a part of constructing a football franchise. We'll start by hiring an experienced staff and more importantly, hiring guys that don't have the limitations, don't have the mentality that we can't do certain things. We feel like it's important that in reimagining football here in this league, that we take an approach that's a bit different. You know, it's not that it's going to be a non-conventional style of play. It'll be the football you know, but we want to make sure that every second of the game is exciting for the fan and the fan experience. I do look forward to having the opportunity to spearhead putting a football team together. You know, that'll be a new challenge for me. I'll lean heavily on just the mentors and the counterparts that I've gained over the years in my different experiences across the National Football League, as well as in major college football. Football has afforded me opportunities that I would have never imagined as a young boy growing up in Charlotte, North Carolina. But also it allowed me an opportunity to develop and grow as a man at Howard University up on the hilltop. I'm excited to share my experiences and my expertise with the football fans, the football coaches, and the young people in the DMV that share the same passion that I have for the game of football. I think it's important that there is inclusion as we build this franchise. You know, it's my goal to really give the Little League coaches, the high school coaches, the coaches that, you know, I've nurtured relationships over the years, to give them access to pro football that they wouldn't otherwise have. And I feel like that's going to help our game grow in this community, and more importantly, give the young people a perspective that will give them an opportunity to go out and achieve and realize their dreams the way that I have. My plan is to give incentives to the season ticket holders to come and support the franchise, to come to our games and really enjoy the football experience here at Aldi Field, and enjoy the experience, and more importantly, put a winning football team out there for the fan base. This is going to be so much fun, and I truly appreciate Mr. Vince McMahon and Oliver for giving me this opportunity. But once again, I want to say thanks to everyone for coming out. You know, it's great to see some familiar faces out in the audience. Kerry Davis, the AD from Howard University, my former roommate, Jay Walker, Senate delegate, you know, coming out to support me, my college advisor, Ms. Karen Hampton. It means a lot that she's still a big part of my life, and she's still here to support me. Our equipment manager from Howard in the back of the room, Papa Lou Jones, he picked me up from the airport when I came on my official visit to Howard University back in 92. And you know, it's great to have your continued support, and we look forward to fielding a great football team and making sure that the fans here in the DC area have a great football experience. With that being said, thanks once again, and I appreciate the opportunity, Oliver. Thank you.
So here's an interesting thing. I had a chance to actually be at the Pep Hamilton press conference in Washington, D.C. So I took a little trip out to the D.C. United Arena, Audi Field, got a chance to sit in there, saw Oliver Luck, saw Pep Hamilton. This is my home base. So this is my home coach, Pep Hamilton. We went over him and past episodes and his background. Really enjoyed the press conference. A couple notes that we had from the press conference. I took some pictures. They're all up on XFL News Hub. This was my first time at Audi Field, so I had a chance to kind of walk around. I did notice, I was like, man, where there's no place to park, or parking was not easy, and there was no place. Where's the tailgate going to be? That was my main thing. What's going on with the tailgates? So I don't know how that's exactly going to work down there. Maybe they just have a big old fan tailgate. But people like to drive their cars, and then getting down there's a little of a challenge because it's connected to the metro. So you have Nationals Park, Washington Nationals, is right across the street. I didn't realize that they were that close. So a lot of people will just take the metro to the park. But for some of us that aren't around the DC area, or taking the metro, we would have to take like 2 or 3 different trains. It doesn't make much sense. It almost be easier to drive in. So that was, but the area is going to be so cool. Like, there's a ton of construction going on. I'm really excited to see what that area looks like even just a year from now. And their stadium, the Audi Field, is relatively brand new as well. I did see some other things while I was down there, some notes that I took. I saw people with WWE jackets working there. So that mix of the WWE talent pool from behind the scenes and XFL still exists, I'm sure. DC board member Ty Simpson forgot to, when he was giving his speech, he forgot to mention the Washington Capitals were a sports team. And that's kind of important because the Washington Capitals won the Stanley Cup last year. Totally forgot about that. And there was some rumblings. You can hear that in the press conference when you're in there. Some notes, Oliver Luck, he talked about the new TV deal, and this has been reported several times throughout his different interviews he did, but there's a new TV deal coming soon. He said 4 games will be televised weekly, 2 on over-the-air terrestrial television and 2 on cable, which would be easy for people to find, and they're sports networks that fans know. So big TVs in major markets sets up for the league very well. That's coming soon. We'll get into more of that later. Of course, Pep Hamilton, you heard all the words from him. It was a fun event. Clinton Portis was there. I was wondering what he might have in store as being a possible part of Pep Hamilton's running backs coach or something. So I really like Pep Hamilton. I liked what he had to say about where the direction you've heard it here. I'm excited about the future of DC XFL football. My team, I think we got a good coach.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. I want to thank Oliver for introducing me. One of the reasons that I've accepted the position here is because he said that he had a son named Andrew Luck, and we have the first shot at him, I think. Isn't that what you said? Oh, okay. Well, no, I'm really excited about being here. And Andrew and I go back a long way in that we were on different teams in the NFL, kind of the same era. And when he called me and asked me if I'd be interested in this league, he mentioned the name Vince McMahon, and I went, isn't he the guy a long time? And he's going, yeah. But as he explained it, and what Vince's vision was and what his vision was together for the future of the XFL, I got excited because it's going to be real football. We're going to have real names on the back of jerseys. And it's also going to be a bit creative. I think each head coach is going to have to really think through, and this is one of the things that I'm most excited about, thinking through what it's going to be like to have a few little tweaks when it comes to the clock, when it comes to getting the ball ready for play, when it comes to what we can do both offensively and defensively with players who may not have had the opportunity that they've wanted to try to get to a professional level. And certainly in this community I see players coming and going from the Seahawk team every year, and I'm thinking, this guy is really good. And I know that even John Schneider sometimes has to agonize over letting and Pete have to let these players go on their way when it may be that they're just not developed enough. So that's one of the reasons that I'm trying to get involved with this league, because I love to have influence over young players and develop younger players. And then the second thing is there are a lot of coaches out there who want to really do the same thing I'm doing and don't have the opportunity because there's only so many jobs. So this is an opportunity as well for a younger coach and maybe an older coach like myself to jump into a league that is going to be very competitive with experienced coaches. And then some of these younger coaches that don't have quite the experience yet get on board and be taught by these older guys on the staff, and then develop these young players and give them another opportunity. So I think the backing that Vince is putting into this league personally, and his enthusiasm is overwhelming, as we all know. And then hiring solid guys that know about football, know how to manage, and know how to get things done. I want to be associated with that. I'm privileged to be in a community where I do know the fans will come out and support. We've already got 8 season ticket holders. Did you know that? We're going to have 8 people I know of in the stands. It's going to be awesome. CenturyLink's going to fill right up, right? And so we're on our way. I got great support. I've got friends. I've got family here, and I thank you for all attending. And a special thanks to Gary and Sandy, who are sitting over here. Gary Wright, Sandy Gregory. They were here the very first day I walked into Seattle. And it was the very first signature I put on a player's contract in Seattle. And I took the very first publicity picture with Sandy. If you remember, it was in the driveway of the AGC building when we were over on Lake Union. I don't know. I was the 3rd guy ever signed by the Seahawks. And Sandy and Gregory are still here wanting to come to a function like this. And so I'm very honored. And then I'm also honored with my family here. And thanks for saying all that you said. I'll have to hear about all that stuff. They want to know where that stuff is, all the good things that you spoke into my life. They're going to go, wait a minute, where is all that stuff? You need to ooze it out at home. So we'll see. But just to kind of put a close to this, we have a lot of work to do. We really do. And I hope to hire, we don't get to hire many, but the ones that we hire, I hope can put together a franchise very quickly that will be competitive very quickly, because this game's going to move fast. And I think we have until February to start this thing, but there's a lot of work to be done. So I'm excited about getting to work. I promise you I'll be working hard with the group that I have, and I thank you for supporting it. I want to see these Seattle fans come out and continue to put themselves in the way of any team that tries to come in here and compete against us. Does that make sense? So come on out. Thanks so much, and let's get started with the XFL in Seattle.
So now we have 3 head coaches. Former Seattle Seahawk Jim Zorn, Pep Hamilton, and Bob Stoops rounding out the top 3 coaches right now in the XFL. We all know Jim Zorn's background. He was a former quarterback for the Seattle Seahawks from 2001 until 2007. We talked about him before. Then he was the Redskins head coach for a while, bounced around to the Baltimore Ravens, my other football team, released from there and joined the Kansas City Chiefs for a little while. Hasn't been doing much lately. Some notes that I really enjoyed about the Jim Zorn press conference, and if we had the XFL News Hub Lear jet set up, but it wasn't set up right yet, I would have flown out there to check out his press conference too. Rumored to be on Monday, then it was on Monday. I'm joking. I don't even have an XFL News Hub pen, let alone a Lear jet. I'm sure Oliver's flying in Vince's WWE jet. But anyway, one thing that it struck me with the press conference, a couple notes, is Oliver Luck really reiterated that the XFL has significant capital. And I think that's in response to some of the AAF issues, money issues we've been hearing about. We'll get into the whole origins of all this in a little bit. But that was just to rest assure the fans and partners, I'm sure, that, hey, we got money. We're not worried about bouncing checks or anything. Vince threw a ton of cash into this. We're good to go. You heard the other Jim Zorn's take on different things. You've heard it all there about who wants to develop young players. He was definitely more of a personable personality type guy compared to the other two. They were just strictly football, strictly business. He made it very lighthearted, joked about Andrew Luck maybe being his quarterback. So all in all, another great hire. Now, he did not have success as a head coach in DC, but that was just a short opportunity. But I think having his name with the XFL in Seattle, a guy who has head coaching experience, Bob Stoops, Pep Hamilton, Jim Zorn, I'm liking all these picks. I think it's a good draw for the XFL Seattle. If I were to rank everybody, I would go Stoops, Pep, and Zorn if you're going just coaching tree alone. But it's making the XFL very interesting. Now, we've only got one other Jim Haslett name out there as a rumor. Who else could be up next? Oliver Luck and new Washington, D.C. XFL coach Pep Hamilton sat down with the Sports Junkies on 106.7. I listened to them for years when I used to commute to NIH way back in the day. But they talked about some things, and it was some really dropping some interesting tidbits that Oliver Luck dropped. A couple of notes that he says, the money behind the XFL is all Vince McMahon's money, no silent backers. The new XFL will reduce the gimmicks of the past, he said, to zero, focused on quality football. So he was talking about, the jerseys and He Hate Me and all those things, which I definitely think, you got to respect the old because it's there. I would make him a coach somewhere. I think that would be kind of fun. Extra points will be 3, 2, or 1 point, but no kicks. But field goals will still be in the game. That was interesting during this interview because Pep Hamilton was like, oh, really? Like, he didn't even know. Of course, he talked about the TV deals. The DC XFL team will practice at RFK Stadium, which I thought was interesting. XFL will start signing players during the spring and summer, asked not to play in the fall on their contracts is signed. So basically what that means is they're asking the players not to play in the fall for the NFL if they sign a contract with the XFL in the spring and summer. Why? Because according to Oliver Luck, what they need to do is get these guys geared up for the season because they kick off in February. So they need that fall time to train and get used to the coaches. And it sounds like, reading the tea leaves, is that they're going to just do one big spot where they're all going to train out of and work together and to get this thing right and get the things going. So it's really interesting how they're going to do this. One note that stood out to me is the big XFL draft will take place after NFL Cutdown Day on September 2nd, 2019. So they'll look at players right now in the spring and in the summer, kind of seeing where things fall, try to grab some guys. But then they'll have another big draft, and that's what he called it, big draft, after NFL Cutdown Day. So all these players are going to get cut, and then they'll have a shot at them in the XFL. Now, QBs will make more money than anybody else in the league. Contracts are in a tiered system. Of course, we've heard about the XFL is not part of the NCAA NFL eligibility rule, so players out of college due to grades or personal issues, they can play in the XFL. There is a salary cap. He did say players in the AAF are eligible for the XFL. There were some questions out there about but I thought the AAF players signed a 3-year contract, so we don't really know how that's all going to play itself out. But they gave some really interesting tidbits. Also, the team announcements, team names will be at the end of March, beginning of April for the team names. So they really want to wrap up the coaches piece soon. I think they'll go TV deal and then they'll go team names at the end of the month, which I'm really excited to hear about. I really hope they're very creative compared to the lame team names. All that stuff, all these tidbits, Oliver Luck with Pep Hamilton on the Sports Junkies on 106.7 here in Washington, D.C. You can hear the whole interview by going to xflnewshub.com or just checking out the Sports Junkies online. Vince McMahon was reportedly in talks to sell the XFL name. This one's real interesting. All right, so according to a report from sports business reporter Darren Rovell, WWE chairman and CEO Vince McMahon was reportedly in talks to sell the XFL name for $50 million. Rovell took to Twitter recently and reported that Robert Van Nech sued the Alliance of American Football and Charlie Ebersol. Van Nech alleges that he came up with the AAF, and because of that, he's entitled to 50% of the ownership. The lawsuit filing also reveals that the original plan was for the AAF really to bring back the XFL name for their football league. So they reportedly had talks with Vince McMahon to use the XFL name and purchase the assets from WWE and NBC for $50 million. AA officials met with Vince, and that is when Vince decided to bring back the XFL on his own. We have all of the tweets that are on this, but quote, Charlie Ebersol and the new football league, the AAF, has been sued by Robert Van Nech, who said it was his idea to come up with the league and entitled to 50% ownership. Van Nech says agreement with Ebersol was agreed, seeks money and wants his name part of its history. In the lawsuit against AAF and Charlie Ebersol, Robert Van Nech, who believes that he had a handshake agreement with Ebersol, said much of what he founded about the league was later credited to partner Bill Polian. Exhibit in the lawsuit shows that AAF originally planned to use the XFL name and purchase assets from WWE and NBC for $50 million. AAF met with Vince McMahon, and he decided to start the league on his own. It also said that it was unsure of at the moment if Vince McMahon had been thinking about bringing the XFL back before the talks with the AAF officials. Of course, we know that XFL is now going to be re-released in 2020. When you look at the lawsuit, the way this whole thing plays out for me, I read over the lawsuit. It has all the information about basically the AAF. And so the plan was to have Charlie, because first they did the 30 for 30, then they met with Vince, and the idea was that the AAF would really be the XFL. Vince would sell it for $50 million, and they would potentially use the WWE network to air the XFL games with. Had this whole pitch to Vince, and then Vince says, you know what? This is a great idea. I'm just going to start the XFL. So then Vince and Charlie quickly get out there that they're going to start this new league. Vince had no idea. And he said in the press conference, if you watched it the first time, he's like, I don't know. I don't have any plan other than the fact that I'm starting the XFL. I'm restarting it. And it's funny because WWE was not Vince's original idea. It was his father, Vince Sr. Vince came in, kind of knocked his father out or something like that. Not knocked him out physically, but kind of pushed him out aside, and then decided to kind of take over. And then he took over the different territories and ran with it. It seems to me that I don't even feel like, based on reading the lawsuit, that XFL was even in Vince's wheelhouse, that he wasn't even interested in it. So somebody approached him and said, hey, I got this great idea for bringing the XFL back and doing a spring football league. Look at all these great numbers and this data, and check this out. Vince, this is a great idea. This is a great investment for you. We'll just sell you the $50 million, and then we can use maybe the XFL network or the WWE network to do the games. And Vince, isn't this a great idea? And Vince is like, absolutely, it's a great idea. I'm just going to do it myself. I don't need you guys. And that's how it started. And it's funny because weird things like this start all the time, where it was so-and-so's idea, but like Vince is a genius bringing back the XFL. It seems like it's either Charlie Ebersol's idea or this guy, Robert Vanich. Really, it sounds like maybe it was his idea from the beginning. Vince isn't the creative genius that we thought he was. There's actually somebody else's idea. Now, this is all allegedly in this lawsuit. We'll see how it plays out. But it's interesting that they both started around the same time or announced at the same time. And you always sit there and think, well, that's kind of weird. Fast forward. Now you have this lawsuit. Now the picture gets a little bit more clear. According to a report by Mike McCarthy of the Sporting News, former quarterback of the San Francisco 49ers, Colin Kaepernick, who's made plenty of news over the last couple of years, talked with XFL executives about joining the league this past fall. Big name guy, right? In the report, an XFL spokesman confirmed that Kaepernick indeed talked with executives about joining the league. Where the talks led, no one knows, as the XFL spokesman declined to comment any further. However, the report goes on to say that the asking price for Colin Kaepernick to play in your football league, $20 million. That's right. This report was broken after the AAF, after a similar price tag of Colin Kaepernick wanting the $20 million. Now, we all know Kaepernick recently settled his collusion case with the NFL. We don't know how much money he got. There was a lot of reports that maybe he might be playing with the Carolina Panthers after a 2-year absence. We don't know what he's doing. Personally, now, forget politics aside, the whole kneeling thing, not interested in getting into that. His skills deteriorated big time. I mean, he played my team, the Baltimore Ravens, and he was a hot commodity, young, up-and-coming quarterback. I don't know if the money got to him. That was kind of something that was coming out. And his play deteriorated where he essentially got benched the second year, not because of the kneeling thing. Now, however, then, of course, there was collusion afterwards. Who knows what the deal was? The NFL paid him something. Maybe it wasn't as much as what he wanted. Who knows what the deal is? But I was surprised that no team would touch him because, I mean, there's still potential there. But he's a name that's on the market, but he wants $20 million to play in the XFL. I don't know about that, my friend, but come talk to me on NFL Cutdown Day, and that price tag from $20 million might go down a little bit. All right, we'll be back with your social media stuff and so much more. Stay tuned. There is only one place that you can get all your XFL news. That is xflnewshub.com. We go all the way back from the beginning of time for the XFL, all the way up to today's stuff, where you can follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Pinterest, and YouTube. All those locations to get all your XFL news. We are your number one source of XFL football news from now all the way until February 2020 kickoff. So stick with xflnewshub.com for all your latest information. Follow us on all the social medias. That's xflnewshub.com. Remember it. Write it down. xflnewshub.com. All right, we are back on to our social media stuff. Josh McGuire21 checking in. He says at XFL News Hub, Pat McAfee would make a decent commentator for the XFL in the XFL. I know he's signed with WWE, but Vince owns both WWE and XFL. Hashtag XFL 2020. Also, news of the franchise names of the XFL teams. Hope they are decent, unlike the AAF franchise names. Iron Fleet, Commodores Express, Hot Shots. I agree. Terrible names. And maybe Vince, when Vince got that the memo from Charlie Ebersol, he was looking at this stuff. Was like, I like the football idea, but not you in charge of it. I'm going to restart this myself, and I'm going to get the best of the best. Now, who knows? During even the mention of talks between Vince and Charlie Ebersol, did Oliver Luck's name come up as a possible somebody to help them with this league? We don't know. All right. On to our question of the week. So our question of the week was, name one big name player that could be in the XFL. This person would need to generate a ton of interest in the league. And we provided some examples. Johnny Manziel, who we just heard today, got kicked out of the CFL. We don't have any proof of anything, but it seems like they kicked him out because of a contract violation, which could mean, his problems could have reared his ugly head again. We hope not. XFL_STL_fans had a good one. Sam Bradford. That would be a great pickup. I mean, he's bounced around the league, the NFL. He's kind of out now. I don't think he's going to make his way back in, maybe as a backup, but Sam Bradford might be interested, potentially even playing maybe for St. Louis. That would be interesting. M82 on the Twitter says Tebow. Again, that's a name that we threw out there. However, I think he's getting a little on the older scale. On the Instagram, we asked the same question. Jim Coffee 29, if the XFL gives Kaepernick a job, the league will fail. Blank, Capper blank. He is a cancer. Mons3RS Slayer. Tim Tebow would be the guy. Aaron J, 1976, Johnny Football, King Grill, X87. Why do people hate Kaepernick so much? I agree with that. 18-Wheeler 661. Clearly, this is the shot. Tom Brady, of course. 18-Wheeler 661, Tom Brady. He's won all those NFL championships. Why not come into the XFL and win one more? I mean, really, your Hall of Fame career isn't on the Tommy Maddox level unless he gets another ring. However, Tom Brady as a coach in the XFL and start that franchise in Boston, that, my friends, is a home run. On the Facebook, we asked the same question. We got lots of reaction to this one. Elliot says Tebow would be nice, like WCW signing Hulk Hogan. Interesting. Chris says, no way Tebow leaves baseball. Manziel just got kicked out of CFL, so not a wise choice. Kaepernick is not a wise choice due to all the distractions he brings. Zach Tebow, Daniel Tebow, Ryan, Ocho Cinco. Maybe as a coach. Eric Tim Tebow, a lot of Tebows. John says, Colin was the reason you rebooted yourself. Remember, no shilling for the new Communist Party. Okay. Tony, I think Tebow would initially be the biggest sign for the XFL could get. I think other stars will emerge once the league gets going, but the biggest splash out of the gate would be Tebow. True. Brian says Tim is going to make a lot if he keeps climbing the ladder for the Mets organization. He's getting a little old. Josh says Tebow or Manziel, Capper blank would be a waste of time and more trouble than he's worth. Plus, he's completely take the focus away from the XFL and turn it into a circus. I don't really know about that. Andy, add RG3 to the list and y'all get good ratings your first season. I thought about RG3 too, but the fact that Joe Flacco was traded, RG3 is definitely the backup to Lamar Jackson for your Baltimore Ravens. America's team, your Baltimore Ravens. Other ones, Johnny Manziel. Let's see, do we got anybody? Manziel. Oh, Darren says, I'm going to go left field and suggest Case Keenum. He's obviously won't be making anywhere near the money he is on the NFL, but let me break it down for you like this. I like it. 1, never lived up to his potential. 2, has failed to settle in on any team. 3, always pushed out by younger, more dynamic counterparts. 4, mental resolve, not fit for competing at the highest level. 5, we just talked about it, Broncos just traded for Flacco. I'm sure he'll take backup money, but if he wants to play, XFL might be the stop. You want to get people out there. Daniel, I thought about this too. Why not Bell and Brown from the Steelers? They're all about the money, and they're not going to get the money that they want from the XFL, unless Bell is like the quarterback or Brown is the quarterback, but they won't do that. Maybe, I'm sure there's a couple other washed up. I mean, Bell has got stuff. They both have stuff left in the tank. I personally wouldn't touch them. At least maybe I'd give them a 2-year deal, but that's about it. Charlie, Colin, don't want to, and neither does Tebow. You better make a storyline for old Johnny Football. And if Colin did decide to play, seeing him stick it to the haters would be MAGA. LOL. Brian Cap, forget the rest. Tebow, Manziel, bunch of Manziel. I think Troy says, I think the JUCO transfers will still the show as they'll be showcasing for the NFL future. True. Quinn says Wayne Gretzky. Yeah, apparently. I'm sure that's out there. Ryan says Nick Foles. That's a good one. Rogelio, Kareem Hunt. Now, let me tell you something about Kareem Hunt, and I think I talked about him on the first podcast, but he messed up my fantasy league so bad. But he's back in the NFL with the team. We'll see if that all sticks around. And that's it for this week's show. Thanks for everybody checking in. All right, for this week's question of the week, coaching ranking. I want you to rank the 3 XFL coaches so far. You heard about my rank, Stoops, Pep, Zorn. Give me your reasons why you rank those top 3 coaches. And maybe we'll have more announcements this week. We can rank them so far. But that's it for this week's show. If you want to be part of the show, you can email podcast@xflnewshub.com. Follow us on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and YouTube. Just look up XFL News Hub, and please leave us a review on iTunes so we can read it on the show. We need to spread the word out. Remember to listen. You can listen to us on iTunes, Spotify, YouTube. Always add new content to there, and on Stitcher. It's been a busy week in the XFL. I'm excited to see what else transpires this week and into next. Stay tuned to XFL News Hub for all your breaking news. Thanks for listening, y'all. God bless, and I will see you all later.